Hi, this is Kara from the Special Needs Mom podcast.
And this is Angela from Especially Organized, Sensible Solutions for Special Needs Moms.
We have this heart for special needs moms. And so we thought, you know what, let's combine forces. And we have come up with what we're calling the Purge Party. And you can pretty much guess what it is. It's a party where we're going to come together and we're going to purge or, in general, accomplish a goal, a small goal together. So we have set this for January 27th, starting at 8 o'clock for my Pacific Coast people,
which means 11 o'clock for all of you on the East Coast. So this is an opportunity. If you have something on your to-do list that has just been stuck there and you are wanting to move it up on the list, you're wanting to tackle, maybe it's a space or an area of your home or a category in your home that has just needed a little time and attention. This is your opportunity for you to be online with us while you work and have access for us to help you answer your questions, help guide you, and just serve you for those 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you can tell like what we've designed is just this very high level of support for that project that you just haven't been able to tackle on your own. The thing that we are envisioning is that you get to leave this purge party feeling so accomplished because you did the thing. You started the year off getting that thing done that you were stuck on last year. And so it's a momentum builder, if you will. You can go ahead and sign up. We have a link ready for you, and we are offering this for $40 for the whole experience.
Absolutely. And we hope you'll join us. I think it's going to be really fun. It's going to be a great group of moms of special needs kids. So we all get each other. We all have an understanding of what it's like to have something on our to-do list, but just we haven't been able to tackle it yet. So I hope that you will join us. We're super excited to bring this to you, and we are thrilled to work with you.
All right. We'll see you all there. Hi, I'm Kara, life coach, wife, and mom to 4 incredible and unique children. It wasn't all that long ago that my son received a diagnosis that had my world come crashing down. I lacked the ability to see past the circumstances, which felt impossible, and the dreams I once had for my life and family felt destroyed. Fast forward past many years of surviving and not at all thriving, and you'll see a mom who trusts that she can handle anything that comes her way and has access to the power and confidence that once felt so lacking. I created the Special Needs Mom podcast to create connection and community with moms who find themselves feeling trapped and with no one who really understands. My intention is to spark the flare of possibility in your own life and rekindle your ability to dream. This isn't a podcast about your special needs child. This is a podcast about you. If you are a mom who feels anxious, alone, or stuck, then you are in the right place. Welcome. Hello and welcome to the Special Needs Mom podcast. Today I am bringing you another activation session, and this session is with Laura. Laura is a mom of 2 kids, Louie, who is 5, and Josephine, who is 3. Her son is her disabled child. Laura is the main caregiver, and what she brings to this session is really an experience of feeling very stuck and very trapped. And of course, trying to navigate coping with the grief that comes with this kind of caregiving and mothering role. What you'll notice that we explore in the activation session is one of the things that is really keeping her stuck. And I'm not going to spoil it now. I want you to really pay attention in the episode. I think you're going to really, really love Laura because she brings a honest and vulnerable conversation. One of the things that Laura shared with me prior to starting the session is that she was realizing that she was seeing her son as more of a task. And one of the things that she's really committed to is having a different relationship with her son. She noticed that she really wasn't enjoying the parts of being his mother that she was able to have with her daughter. And that obviously was bothering her. And it was so wonderful to explore this with her and to help gain some access and understanding of perhaps what was causing that experience for her. My guess is you're going to relate to a lot of it because a lot of the things we do as caregiving mothers requires us to do a lot of unpleasant things. And you're going to learn from witnessing Laura that there's a couple of things we commonly do that perhaps are not helpful in the way that we expect ourselves to be in these relationships. And so listen to this episode, see how you relate to Laura, put yourself in her shoes, and of course, bring all the kindness and curiosity and application to your own life too. All right, let's get into Laura's activation session. Laura, welcome to your activation session.
Thank you.
All right. Let's give the listeners a little context to how you're coming to this call. So perhaps a little bit about what you do during the day, a little bit about your family life. Let's give that quick snapshot.
Okay. My son is 5 years old. He had HIE from birth and he's severely disabled, totally dependent of adult care. I also have a 3-year-old daughter who is neurotypical. I am on the path to find myself back since maybe 18 months, I'd say. I start working on myself and going away from that survival mode from the first year and from having 2 kids back to back too.
Yeah.
Currently, we have a lot of help at home with my son. He's also going to daycare. So I'd say that my life is way lighter right now than it used to be. I quit my job maybe 6 months ago because it was not working for us, for family balance and also for my personal life. That's the way we found to make life work. So one of us, my husband's very busy at work, so one of us could be available for appointments, for viruses, for whatever life is bringing. While quitting my job, I start to work on a business project too. I'd like to talk to the women behind the mom of disabled or sick kid to tell them that they can and they need to take care of themselves no matter what. So I'm slowly working on that project. And for my biggest surprise, I realized that I'm going to help women, but it's also helping myself a lot. Being public about my life, the last picture I had post on Facebook was my pregnancy picture from 5 years ago. And now And so a couple of months ago, I became public telling about my son, about how I feel. And oh, wow. I like the way it resonates with other women, but also the impact on myself.
Yeah. I really love the saying that you just shared, the women behind the mom. I might borrow that phrase. It's so good.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for giving us that quick snapshot and just kind of the brief history. That's very helpful to kind of be able to picture where you're at in life. And you mentioned you were in a survival state a couple years ago. You've really stabilized. And you've shared with me that you're kind of looking for that next step. And specifically, you're at a place where you're really noticing that the relationship with your son is not what you want. Describe to me a little bit about the relationship that you're noticing that you have with your son.
I would like to have more pleasure in that relationship. That's what I'm looking for. I realized that I'm the main caregiver, as most of the mom, I guess, who's listening. And I found it hard. I know my son could be my biggest teacher of, just being. And I find it hard to go there because for me, most of the time it's I don't want to say that he is a task, but his care is a big task. And I'm trying to go out of the doing to the being. That's hard. And as much as I could have fun with my daughter, I don't know how to get there with my son. Probably because I'm in the doing, and then the brief moment that we have of pleasure in my head starts spinning about it will be this forever. And I don't know, my husband is so able to do that. But I think the fact that he's at work busy all day and then he come back home and that's his way to empty his head, and he just take my son and they are dancing and they are laughing. And I don't know, I know dad, it's easier sometimes for dad to have fun. Because they don't have the behind the scene task of the mental load and everything. But Yeah, I'd like to be more like him for that. Just play and not think about everything. I was telling my husband the other day that I was kind of grieving that the fact that there are things that as a family that we can't do, going for a ski or whatever, that kind of stuff that it won't be fun for my son. And he was like, we can do everything we want. And I was like, oh my God, maybe I'm the one who's complicating everything.
So I want to look at something real quick. We might not spend a lot of time there, but I am curious about it. When you are experiencing this lack of enjoyment in those moments, and then your head starts to kind of spin, hey, you might be here. This might be the rest of your life. What are the thoughts that you have about yourself during those moments?
About myself? Oh, for sure. There's guilt that is coming because, you should not be thinking that. Blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know I'm a good mom, so I don't think I'm questioning that. But why are you not able to enjoy this?
Mm-hmm.
Because who knows? Who knows what can happen? So I might be sorry if something happened because I'm not enjoying right now. Yeah, that's some of the thoughts that are coming too.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for sharing that, because that was part of my suspicion, is that there's this compound effect because you're already not enjoying the thing that you're doing. And then you have some thoughts about not enjoying the thing that you're doing because you should be doing something else or doing it a different way. Or in your words, which I think are wonderful, having a different being about it. And then on top of that, so you're already having this experience. That's one experience in itself. And then you're having all sorts of what I'll call judgments on yourself. I should be doing it. I should be able to do this. I shouldn't be thinking these thoughts. And judgments, you share with me in your intake form that you felt trapped and stuck. And so I want to really connect this feeling of trapped and stuck with the judgment. Judgment is so good at keeping us where we are. So we're going to go back to that. I want to take a quick glance over it, kind of just identifying where you're at on what I call the evolution of a special needs mom. I used to call this the Pathway to Peace journey, but I feel like it was confusing with the name of my program. So, and I like this better because I feel like it is an evolution. I think it's important to kind of identify where we're at, not because it's a fixed location and it's something I made up, right? So it's different for everybody, but I think it's helpful to kind of say, hey, I think I'm about here, because it gives us a little bit more information on how to get there, meaning having the experience that we want. And I want to be careful when I say that, to say that there is not better than here. Each step along the way is exactly where you're supposed to be. But at the same time, which I think can kind of also be like, well, how do you hold these two at the same time? At the same time, you can also say, hey, but I do want to have a different experience. And so I think just from what you've shared with me, you're in this rebellion stage where I love the name of that, right? Because you have navigated and really kind of locked in how you care for your son. You're stable. You've exhausted probably giving all to your son. Well, you have, because you shared with me, but the last year and a half, you said you really have shifted to really creating some space for yourself. So this is what tells me you're solid in the rebellion, or what I used to call calm the chaos. And the next step beyond that is what I call, it's a little cheesy, but work with me, power, peace, and possibility. And
I think I'm navigating between the two.
Yes, actually, I would agree. I would definitely agree, because it's not linear moving from one step to another. It's more like scribble, like you kind of move towards a box and you move back. And then I'd say during different phases, we go back and forth through this evolution all the time. And so I think it's important to recognize they're very dynamic. But what I want to point out is I think a big part in this step 4 in the rebellion is the re-identity. And you've already described that you're in this process already. And I think even getting a little bit deeper in this for you, I think would be really, really important.
I had shivers when you said that. Oh yeah, you're right. I'm there.
Yeah. And what came up for me when you were sharing the experience of caring for your son in terms of just, the routine, the mundane, the things that have to be done, but perhaps you genuinely don't enjoy doing, is separating out your role as mom from caregiver. Because right now, as you're experiencing it, it's all the same. You're there every day for him all day. And so kind of switching back and forth between the roles, and whether you call them mom and caregiver, you can decide that later. But I think allowing yourself to have very different identities within each role, and really recognize that most of the day you are in a caregiver role. And I want you to imagine if you were actually, clocking in as if it was a job. We're not saying he's a job, but it's the kind of commitment that is a very high commitment. It's the kind of job that you can't call in sick for. And so what I want to point out is that you're expecting yourself to enjoy everything. And this would be absurd if you look at it in other areas. What was the work that you did before you retired to be a full-time caregiver?
I was working in a municipality in development project.
Okay, what were things that you loved at your job?
That's a good question. I was due for a change. No, I loved all the planning. I was working a lot on the planification for like 20 years, the project that will come for the territory. And, you see a challenge and then you work to...
Yeah, that sounds fun. Okay, Now let's look at the other side. What were some things that you didn't enjoy, that you were tired of, or just like you would have...
The stress.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well,
pressure, you had to perform kind of stuff.
Working with elected people, you have to meet their own...
Yes, people, you've said enough. People are wonderful and difficult at the same time. Okay.
Yeah. And when I quit, I was happy with my decision because I was ready to do something else. When I quit, I had already acquired tools to help me. I did a yoga teacher training. I did I don't know how to say it in English, but maybe a life coach, something program too. So I had already the tools that I got for myself. But when I quit, I already knew that I was going to use them to help other women. So that was, I could say that was more of an opportunity than I was not sad when I quit.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. You're right. Like you said, you're ready to move on. Okay. So here's the reason I asked that question is I was trying to illustrate something that I don't think you see yet. I want to point out. So you have this old job and there are parts that you liked-ish. It sounds like I can kind of tell it was intriguing and interesting to you. And then there was a lot of parts you did not enjoy. And the difference there is that you didn't have any judgments about yourself for not enjoying it. You're just like, yeah, it's stress. It's hard. It's hard. And over here back, if we toggle back to you as a caregiver, you're expecting yourself to love and enjoy things that if you like, never would you say, yeah, I want to enjoy. I don't know if his toileting situation, but if you have to... Diapers, right? So I'm thinking that you're never going to decide that you love changing diapers. Right? Am I right about that?
Yeah, you're right.
So the thing I really want to kind of laser in on though is because we're looking at the relationship again with your son and how you, more importantly, the experience that you're having with him. Because what I hear is that you want to enjoy him. You don't want to just have to work with him. And so what I'm looking at is that you have two distinct roles, probably more, but mother and caregiver. As caregiver, I want you to consider it as if it was a job. In relating to it as there's some parts of your job that you don't like to do, but you do them anyway because you want to do a good job at your job.
Okay.
You want to do it to the best of your capacity.
Try this.
Yeah. But so what I think it's going to change is it's going to change the expectations you have of yourself. It's going to change the relationship you have with yourself as a caregiver. So what I picture for you is no longer are you going to be judging yourself when you don't like changing diapers or when you're not enjoying, better said, you're not enjoying changing diapers. You're going to think, I don't like changing diapers. This is not my favorite part of the job. Or maybe even something, it might even be more neutral. And my guess is this actually would serve you better is like, this is just part of my job. You're not feeling great about it, but you're not loathing it. And really, ultimately, I think it's giving yourself permission to not like parts of this. And yes, continue to grieve those parts because over there in mom, there's some parts that you really don't like. If my guess is if you could choose anything in the world, you wouldn't necessarily choose it to be exactly how it is, even though I know you love your son.
Yeah, you're right. And that's the other part that I'm working on is, and I guess it's more going to the power and peace you call stage.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's the acceptance.
Yes.
I know I'm walking to that. I call it that interior peace about my life and my son, but saying that I accept it and that I wouldn't change it if I had, a genius. If a genius would come and say, do you want to change? And that's interesting because right now, the path that I'm taking, the new life that I'm starting, I wouldn't have taken it without my son. And I really enjoy that new path. So I feel kind of stuck, and I did not choose it. I wouldn't choose it, but is acceptance just finally a kind of surrender? You know what I mean?
We'll touch here briefly. So I think what's happening for you, and this happens for so many people, and I want to identify it because it's the thing that stops us from acceptance. Acceptance is different from approval. So oftentimes what I'll say is conflate acceptance with something that we think it means or something that it means for the future. Like for my son has a modified gait, which means he walks much differently than other people. And accepting it is really just, my son has a modified gait. It is just what is, without judgment or resistance. It doesn't mean necessarily I don't have thoughts and feelings about it. It does not mean I don't grieve it. What I think most of us kind of get confused in acceptance is my son can't walk like everybody else, and that means he's going to suffer. What I mean by conflating is like we're trying to tell ourselves that we have to accept the suffering along with whatever the disability is. And I would say, yeah, probably there's some acceptance in watching your child have a hard time, but it's different. And separating out the two gives us the ability to really just accept. And the critical piece here is to move forward. If we don't accept, we're kind of back there fighting with what I call reality. We're arguing with reality, something that just is. And so we're spending our time resisting and fighting with what is, instead of looking at what is and then saying, now what? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to turn back to the place where we started and look at this relationship with your son. So when I talk about having these two different identities, the invitation that I would give you is I would almost write a job description for each of them.
That's interesting.
Yes. And this, you can have fun with this, like have this be a creative outlet. Almost even like you could take it however what feels fun for you. Almost if you were going to post those two jobs or roles on LinkedIn or wherever to hire the person.
Something about the mom part?
Yes.
Because I think I am protecting myself while being in the doing. I'm protecting myself from what could happen, that I could lose him. I felt it in my heart that it's kind of a protection. When he was born, we were told he was going to die. Mm-hmm. He was not going to survive. So as the mother of a very young baby, I prepare myself to lose my son, and it never happened. So I know it's all related to that.
Yeah. And when you share that, it makes me think that you're spending all of your energy in caregiver because it's a safe place to be. It's where you get to do and protect him, right? So there's this controlling piece. So thanks for pointing that out. And over there in mother, it sounds like there's a vulnerability. It sounds like that there's a brokenheartedness that is calling you there.
I think that's what it is.
Right. And so for you, when you write your description for mother, you might describe the experience that you would have or how you would need to show up all of you with your heart open, willing to grieve, willing to process all the feelings. And in a different way than a caregiver might. Because if you think about like a wonderful caregiver, they're going to love your child too, right? Like I'm thinking about our old nanny, who's now also our editor. So yes, it was a job for her and she was paid, but she also loves my kids. Now, does it mean she loved everything about them? Probably not. I can probably guess a couple things that were not her favorite, but very different than who I am as mother. So what I see for you in identifying these roles is really as a first step to really looking at the way of being that you would have in either one, and of course the doings, but you use that language, and I think it's really, really helpful language, because I think it's also going to allow you to stop expecting yourself to be inhumane about this, because that's kind of actually how you're expecting yourself, is to be happy all the time in really like hard situations. And so both that's, and I think you're doing that in both mother and caregiver role. Any thoughts or questions?
That's interesting. I had not see it that way, but I will definitely do the job offer.
The job offer, yes.
Post them.
Make sure you do a really high salary because you're worth it.
Yes, but you're right. I loved when you said that the safe place to be was the caregiving. That's exactly what I'm doing, and I'm not allowing myself to go to that mother place. Yes, but no, because it's triggering, or it's where I need to be vulnerable. Yeah, I think you're right about this. And I will definitely, from that session, I will definitely keep that this is just part of my job. And remember from the caregiver part that I don't have to like every part of it. And I'm just so good at it, but that's okay if I'm kind of neutral about at least about some part of it.
Yeah.
I think what I'd like to be able to do is to go more often in that mom role.
Yes, exactly.
Like I can do it with my daughter.
Yeah, and this is where you would get to bring intention into it and really notice when your mind shifts to that caregiver role. And you might also recognize that you need to create a structure for yourself, as in actually asking your husband, hey, are you willing to take the caregiver role and really take care of all of his needs right now? Because I'm just going to spend this next half hour or whatever time you decide to really focus on being mom and to enjoying our son. You might have to enroll him and describe what that means.
You're pointing something interesting too in the balance of
Yeah, there's a quote that I absolutely love, and this speaks to your experience of having a hard time being in that mom energy of play with your son. And it's a heart that cannot rest, cannot play. And if you look at what it takes to keep your son alive, if you look at all of that, you can imagine that rest feels very vulnerable and unsafe for you.
Yeah.
And from this state, it's very hard to play. It's very hard to have fun. So there's several different areas to look at, right? Because it's the grief, it's the heartbreak, but also I think this is a good place to start in terms of the roles. All right. Are you willing to take on writing these job descriptions?
Yeah, I think I'll do it.
Okay. And so by when will you have completed this exercise?
In a week, maybe.
Another week. So today is March 14th. What are you thinking?
March 20.
20. Okay. So March 20. And I'm asking that because I will check in with you and see how it went. My commitment is to support you and have fun in this. All right. Well, we're going to wrap up there. Is there anything you want to ask or share as we wrap up?
No, I think I really enjoyed the experience. I feel that really having another person really understand what you are going through, it's really helpful. Because the coach that I was talking about, she doesn't have a disabled kid. So she's very open. She understands a lot of things, but she doesn't understand the way you could understand. And that's what I have been looking from the beginning, other mom to talk with, and to other mom that was a little bit in front of me on that path, just to give me confidence that this could happen to me too, or that my life could be not just chaos.
Yeah. And that's what I think is so valuable about being in a community of women that are committed to exactly what you are doing, in terms of really saying, okay, like this is where I'm at, and I don't necessarily want to have this experience for the rest of my life. I actually want to have this balance. I want to have power. I want to have play. I want to not feel trapped. And because it's so much easier, it's like looking in the mirror. You can see things that you cannot see when you are just walking around Sometimes you look in the mirror, you're like, whoa, I didn't know I looked like that. So it's the same experience over here as a coach, where it's like easy for me to look over there and maybe see things that you don't, just like a coach would look at me and point out things that I don't see. We all have these blind areas. Our brains are really good at avoiding certain ways of thinking and kind of keeping us where we're at because it thinks this is safe. We know this. We're familiar with this. Let's stay here. All right. Well, let's wrap up there. And Laura, it was such a privilege to talk with you. I see amazing things in your future as you serve mothers, as you serve yourself. So it's a beautiful commitment. I think an example to us all.
Thank you very much.
One more thing before we officially wrap up this show. Sometimes when I'm listening to podcasts, I have the experience of wanting more. I'm listening at the very end thinking, I sure wish that episode didn't end. I invite you, if you feel in any way the same way, I invite you to the Special Needs Mom podcast community, which is a free group that I host on Facebook, where we as a community of fellow moms who listen to this podcast and are experiencing life in similar shoes, get to talk to one another, get to share stories, get to actually interact. I hope you'll consider joining. See you over there.